very happy to be here, and I want to congratulate the organizers. I don't have a big, long speech, but I have a story I want to share with you. I got a good friend up in San Francisco named Thomasina. She's an oil painter, and she's got a bumper stripper on the back of her Jeep. It says, "Art saves lives." And I really believe that, and I want to share with you a story from my life about how art actually saved lives. And I think it's important now because our country and our planet face such overwhelming challenges. And most of us are ordinary people. And it's easy to shut down and become numb and become overwhelmed. And there was a time in my life where I felt that I could not go further. It was 1987. Almost everybody I knew was dead or dying from HIV. I lived in the Castro, where we watched friends and lovers die every single day. And my heart was filled with hatred and fear and despair. Hatred for the straight world and the politicians who were allowing HIV to kill relentlessly without responding. Fear for what was going to happen to me, and despair that the world would ever wake up in time to do anything about it at all. And in that time, when I saw people all around me becoming paralyzed with fear and grief and despair, I had an idea of a quilt. And that quilt was started by someone who was not an artist, but it tapped into something all across this country and all around the world. Ordinary people who were burying their children and lovers and neighbors and wanted to find a way to remember together and to break through the silence and stupidity and cruelty that still surrounds this disease. So that was the idea. We took the quilt on tour for years and years. We lived out of a truck called Stella, and I hired a big mean truck driver named Deborah to drive her around. When we got back to San Francisco after the first year of traveling, we wanted to show the quilt to the city where it began. We did a big display at the Moscone Center, named after George Moscone, murdered with Harvey Milk all those years ago. After the quilt was unfolded, I went back to the workshop. I wanted to be alone and just have some time to myself. I was sitting in the back of my desk, and I got that weird back of the neck sensation that I was being watched. I looked up and I saw an old woman standing on Market Street looking through the plate glass window. She was African American with dark brown skin. She looked to be about 75 years old. Deeply lined face. She was wearing a blue dress. I opened the door. I said, "Come in," but the quilt's on display in the center. I can give you direction. She crossed her arms. She looked at the floor. She wouldn't speak, but she came in. I left her alone. She looked at some of the quilt panels that had come in too late to be included in the display. She looked at some of the brochures. She sat by a sewing machine, and then she got up and left without saying a word. 3 days passed. The workshop again was filled with volunteers, people grieving together, creating panels for their family members and loved ones. And this woman appeared at the door again. She was wearing the same pale blue dress, her face, the same scowl. Her arms still crossed across her chest, but as she came in, we saw a piece of fabric in her arms. She told us she'd come to San Francisco by herself on a Greyhound bus from Kentucky. Earlier in the year, her firstborn son had come home from LA to die. She cared for him alone without ever telling another human being what her son's illness was. And when his time was up, she took him to the county hospital. It wasn't long and he was gone. She told us that she walked back to her home. And when she opened the front door, she looked across the living room and saw her son's bedroom door standing open. And through that, she saw the IV rack and the bedpan and the pills and the towels. And she closed the door and locked it and never opened it again. Months passed. And this woman, waiting for a dentist appointment, picked up a back issue of People magazine and read a story about the quilt. And she got on a Greyhound bus and traveled by herself across the United States of America to Castro Street in San Francisco. She told us this story, and then she handed us the piece of fabric that was in her arms and said, "This is my son. I have to go home now and clean out his room." I felt so grateful at that moment that we in San Francisco, who were mostly young and white and gay, had through this work of art found this old African-American woman alone with her grief in the hills of Appalachia and connected her and her son and their love and their struggle with all the many different kinds of people all across this planet who in the course of fighting back against HIV have come to understand what a tiny planet it is and how irrevocably all of our lives are linked. That has been the message of great artists and great revolutionaries and great spiritual leaders for thousands of years. Our lives are linked. They all have value. We are equal in the eyes of God. That is the message of the Prop 8 trial. I am proud to be here. I'm proud to be part of the Courage campaign. We are gay and straight together. We are fighting for LGBT equality, but we see it as part of a broader, deeper, larger struggle across this planet. For all of us, all the ordinary men, women, and children who understand that now is the time to join together and change this world. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your art and your love and your hard work. We've got a lot to do, but we are going to win. Thank you very much.